All right. Welcome to, I don't even know what episode it's written somewhere, but Morgan and Erin coming to you from different places on, the map. I am in Miami. It is 80 degrees here.
And I am in Florida, or no, I'm not in Florida. In my mind, sometimes I'm in Florida, but I am in Chicago where it is not 80 degrees. I believe it's about 40.
Yes, and the reason I'm celebrating so much is because I just moved here. So to me, when I've been telling people this all day because it's so funny to me. I finally figured out how to delete that stupid news app from my phone. That it kept auto sending me alerts and I don't watch the news. We'll do it in a second, but we're just gonna free vibe for a second. But anyways, and so what ended up happening was as I finally figured out how to delete that stupid thing, now what shows up is Chicago weather. So I wake up every morning and I
giggle.
Yeah, that it's cold in Chicago and I'm a sun goddess. Okay. So I am in the field. I am the founder of Epic Sexy You, which is an international female empowerment brand, 18 countries and counting. So also I'm the author of the Amazon bestselling book, Epic Sexy You. You'll see a pattern here. And I just found out that one of the shipments to Egypt, which was country number 18, got confiscated, which is so freaking funny to me. Well,
that's
it got to, you know what I mean? And so
right.
Maybe Egypt is getting Epic Sexy You before they give it to their peoples. So I am a life coach. I am an intuitive. I channel and download soul wisdom. I have healed my body from like a bazillion and five. Okay, so like 4, but autoimmune
feels like bazillion and 5.
Yeah.
When you have it.
Yeah, had past tense. Asthma, arthritis. So rheumatoid arthritis, asthma, fibromyalgia, chronic fatigue, which it fits into that, but it wasn't. And God, I always feel like I'm missing one when sinusitis. Oh my gosh, like I could never breathe. But I also smoked cigarettes, so go figure. And yeah, I am just on a mission to awaken and expand as many souls as humanly possible. And I do all sorts of yummy, delicious things. I do one-on-one coaching. I do retreats, which is why I'm here in Miami. I have a retreat house to bring people into. Just had someone this weekend. Amazing. So I do a bunch of things. And Erin and I just recently, Erin's my bestie, and I'll let her intro herself in a minute. But one of the things is that we decided, we started doing working out together. We started doing Beachbody working out together. And, when we started doing that, we're like, oh my gosh, why don't we just let people come join us on our journey? And we're just talking about things that help you get into a body that you love being in. And everything that we're going to talk about is also applying to creating a life that you love living. So Erin and I are on the journey together, and I decided it would be really selfish to keep her all to myself, especially when you hear her intro and you see we're very different, and also we work really well together. So Erin,
very true.
Yourself.
Hi, I'm Erin. I have been besties with Morgan for 13 years now. We met through my ex-boyfriend. His best friend was Morgan's brother. So that's how we met. And luckily, that relationship didn't work out, but luckily, I got to keep her in the process, and we became even closer. Yeah. So that was a blessing in disguise. I am a nurse for over 13 years. I worked in pediatric critical care, neonatal critical care, adult critical care. Now I do data management, so no more patients, but I see a whole different side of healthcare, including risk factors, how much lifestyle, sedentary lifestyle, diet, lack of exercise, and just the choices you make every day can really impact your health either very positively or very negatively. And it kind of kills me inside to see all these people and the epidemic in the country of people who are literally falling apart as they go on every decade based on their choices. started doing this with Morgan and started, like we said, working on our fitness together. I'm also a beach body coach. I'm a recovering perfectionist and an aspiring good enoughist. And I've been also, over the past decade, freeing myself from the shackles of fear, whether it's societal, which we'll kind of talk about today, or things that have just been kind of deeply ingrained and hardwired into you over time. And the different shackles that food has placed on me in my life. I have celiac disease, so I, unbeknownst to me, had gluten, wheat products, rye, barley, things in food make me severely, severely ill for almost 3 decades until we figured out what it was, and then all of my problems went away. I also had arthritis. I had my gallbladder removed. A common cold would last me almost 2 weeks. I would get food poisoning and end up hospitalized. I've been hospitalized over 20 times. Because I got worked up for immunodeficiency disorders and lupus because my immune system functioned so poorly. And just making dietary changes totally revolutionized my life, because I was on that path to be one of these people who ended up with all of these health problems later in my life. So it was a fix that was so worth it. So yeah, here we are.
Okay, so because
oh, there she is.
So she's really funny because she ignores me
her.
until I'm doing something, and then she wants mama love.
There she is.
That's actually how she ended up on the cover of that best-selling book. She was, getting bored not being included. Oh my God,
yeah, look at her.
Cute.
Hi, Iz.
You say hi.
Yeah, hi, babies. There'll be a cat butt that'll pass by in about 30 minutes.
Yeah, our animals want to make sure that they get to be included as well.
That's right.
That's so funny. So another thing too, just to note, because I love when we share these and then, just the different pieces, but it's like, so one of the things as we talk about this, because I feel like there's some pieces that we can play with, but I shared a little bit about who I am and what I do, and a piece of that is also I went from like what I consider a hot mess to like this epicness, right? Or greatness. And also I was an awful drinker. So it's like when people are like alcoholic, I was like, couldn't stop after one, call it whatever you want, right? So like really recovering in that way. And it's interesting as we start talking about society, which we're going to talk about today. I don't know why, but I just feel really guided to share, just kind of the initial thing of like, even when you're making decisions that drastically will change your life and make you like a better person. So as an example, when I decided to quit drinking, it's amazing the resistance that you get met from other people around you. It's pretty mind-boggling. So I don't know, there's something about like I'm hearing soulfully to prime the conversation with knowing that if you want to live in the arena of life, if you want to create a life beyond your wildest dreams, if you want to get into a body you love being in, if you want to be in a relationship that like excites and delights you, if you want to step outside of societal norms and boxes and, and you really want to just fly and you want to create your own reality and be the master creator of your existence, you're going to trigger the shit out of a lot of people. And they're not even going to consciously realize that they're doing it or that it's happening. And what's going to end up happening is you're going to be taking on, the otherness bullets where it's like, boom, 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 and so just because I think sometimes what happens is people are like, dream chasing, it's going to be amazing. And I'm going to tell everyone,
oh yeah,
I'm sober, like I remember when I was so excited that I made that decision to embark on sobriety. And I legitimately felt everyone was going to be really excited for me because I was such a bad drinker.
Yeah. Oh God.
And they weren't. Like, even so I worked in the corporate.
I was super pumped because then I didn't have to drive you home anymore.
Yeah. Well, I would always shabba dabba do her and then I'd pass out. And so imagine you're the person that's driving me home and I'm sleeping somewhere. I used to like sleep in Raleigh. In fact,
Yeah, you did.
Erin and I went to a Jason Derulo concert in Florida probably 20 years ago. And, or, you know, so 15 years ago, something. And I'm embarrassed / also a little tickled because it's such a funny thing to me. But I remember when I became sober, I had a Jason Derulo song on my phone, and I remember it popped up, and it was a cover of like this gorgeous black man's abs. And I was like, why does Derulo, however you say his name, why does he have this picture on his cover of his album? Because I was so blackout drunk that for some reason I remember him being a Latino. You know? So like, not my best work, but yeah. So then Erin didn't have to have. Actually, Erin turns into Tina Turner when she drinks.
True.
So Erin got to be actually my first. Erin and I used to take trips all the time, and this actually also plays into society. So this ties in.
Oh yeah.
I decided that this isn't going to be like everyone's way, but my way, which is a version, is if I'm going to do something, I'm going to do it really big so that I challenge myself right out of the gates so that I gain the confidence that I need in order to know if I can make it through that, I can make it through anything. Mm-hmm. So one of the things that I did was when I decided to become sober, I made the decision and the commitment to be all in on that ride like 10 days before an all-inclusive president's trip when I was in the corporate world. These things were like the biggest shit show of drinking and
huge
just
party.
Like completely. It was basically
like a 6 or 7 day party.
Yeah, our entire company, our company, not our entire company, everyone who qualified for this trip, we would basically rent out we would find a hotel and we would rent out the entire hotel. And everything was included, including from like the morning until whatever, like just free flowing with alcohol, and everyone drank. And it was just so embedded in the culture of sales and consulting and just what we did. And so, you know, that's how we took clients out. It's how you know, anyways. So for this all-inclusive trip, it was my first, I knew that if I could make it through those 7 days, that I knew I could make it through sobriety. Other than that, maybe like 1 or 2 times I've been challenged in my sobriety, and it usually had to do with like when I was going through, when there was about 1.5 years into my relationship with my recent ex-boyfriend, Joe, we were having some I got triggered, and I did not drink, but it was like one of those times where it's like when I was dealing with a lot of emotions. But other than that, this first trip was really like the biggest test of my sobriety. And so, you know, what was really interesting was, well, Erin turns into Tina Turner and she starts dancing and she gets in your face and she's drinking and it's amazing. And then I got to actually be present to it versus like, you know, sleeping. And thinking more Latino men. It's because I love Latino men, so I just wish everyone was Latino. And so what ended up happening was on this trip, as the individuals who worked at the company started realizing that I wasn't drinking, they started being like, "Are you judging me?" And I'm like, "Wait, what? I'm sober. What? I have a drinking problem. How am I judging you?" And so there's this really interesting thing that started to happen where, and this one story is so representative of any change you make in your life. Like when I went, you know, I went vegan because I found out that I was allergic to meat and dairy. And then I found out I was allergic to gluten and soy and blah, 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 you know, and like it changed my entire life. Every autoimmune disease that I had was gone. And yet people all of a sudden started really projecting their own bullshit on me, thinking that like, and I have never ever said to people like, you should be vegan, blah, blah, blah. You know, it's like, works for me. And so it's interesting to me how people are always trying to get me to drink, People are always trying to, it's almost like they feel sorry for me that I'm missing out on something in life, that I'm not indulging in some of the processed foods and meats and blah, blah, blah that they're indulging in. But to me, that's not indulgence. And so what happens is as we start to talk about society, and I'm excited to hear the piece that you're bringing, because you brought this really cool piece to play with too. One of the pieces or chunks I just want to, to make sure that we share is this piece around, you have to be really crystal clear on what it is that you want and what it is that you believe and what it is that you're committed to. Because if you allow the otherness, society, etc., any other person other than you to decide what you want or who you're supposed to be or how you're supposed to do it, or you will be fragmented and pulled in a million different directions the rest of your life, because you cannot please everyone. And also the same person, actually, it was kind of funny. Someone said to me the other day, she was like, she was talking about in the bedroom. She was like, something that would really please me today in the bedroom may not please me tomorrow. And I just think that's representative of life in general, where it's like, if you're trying to please others, even if it's one person, that person may not like the next thing the next day or whatever, so there's just knowing that, I get this a lot actually when I'm working with clients and we're talking about stepping into your heaven on earth and creating this like epic dream space, is people start to really think about, what others are going to, it's like this strange thing, what others say, or like success. So the way that you define success, you totally 1,050% get to create that yourself and actually ask yourself that definition. But we don't often do that, because
we measure it against everyone else.
Yeah. And
their definitions of success.
Yes. Or what we think they think it is.
Yes.
So that's what was really like when I was in the corporate world, what I thought that others thought it was.
Right.
Was money, having a paid off car and having a home and having a
Right.
And then when I was like, okay, I got to the top of the company and I was successful by every definition that I thought that others thought that it was.
Yeah.
And I think that's a lot of time when we say society, it's like what we think that others think it is. It's not even like someone's not always saying it. Sometimes they are saying it, but sometimes we just think that others think it.
Right.
Try to read everyone's mind. And so what ends up happening, or what ended up happening for me, is I stopped and I said, what is my definition of success? Because this current definition isn't working for me. And I wish that more people gave themselves permission to literally create their own definitions for things. Brené Brown does an amazing job of that. She'll like read a definition and then she's like, let me define it myself. And so when I gave myself permission to say success, my definition, feel free to borrow whatever works and discard what doesn't, is my definition is how much time I spend loving being me. So when I gave myself permission to upgrade my definition, at that point in my life, I was no longer successful. So then I became, so then I was like, okay, or, hence why in that awakening space, I was like, okay, alcohol has to go because I don't love being me when I'm drinking. Well, maybe there were like these little pieces and pockets that were fun, but I could never stop. So just giving ourselves permission to define things how we actually want to, instead of constantly looking external. And also, people a lot that I work with, they share their dreams with others, expecting others, of course we would want others, especially like sometimes our friends, our family, we're like, oh, I'm going to share this really big dream. And then people poo-poo on our dreams.
Yeah.
Like sometimes even our health goals, like we'll be like, oh, I want to, get really strong. And we're like, why?
It's kind of the same thing now, especially with the health goals. And I've experienced that for sure. And I've experienced the judgment in another way, that with drinking. But I've always I don't drink a whole lot. you know, like it's like you were saying, like we could go out and I could have one, and I was like, or it's like, oh, I could go out until 4 a.m. and have none.
Yeah.
That was how I was. And I still could do that, and I could also then go out and just get hammered. But with being a vegetarian, so I've been a vegetarian since I was 12, since 1994. And so when that happened, it was funny. So what's interesting, and this is actually good for me to also say out loud, because like you're saying with the health journey, it's like you start being like, hey, I'm going to do these healthy new things. And people are like, oh, what makes you so fucking special now? Huh? Look at you with your cool fucking 6-pack. Huh? You think you're better than me? And they're like, no, I was just, really enjoying what I was doing over here and wanted to know if you kind of wanted to do it. But no, all right, cool. But like, so being a vegetarian when you're 12, I was still a kid. And so therefore to make that decision, you got a lot of adults. Kids are kind of like, oh, whatever. Like, yeah, they're going to make fun of you but I was always a little different anyway. So like, I was kind of used to like being a weirdo and being made fun of, but then you've got a lot of adults who are kind of like, not many people were vegetarian in like the early 90s. Right. And so it was like, oh, okay, this little tree lover over here is a vegetarian. But then you kind of get the like condescending, like, do you really know what you're doing, little girl, kind of thing. So what's funny about that is that like when I was in college and in my 20s, I was very, very outspoken about being a vegetarian because I was not only doing it for health issues because I had gotten severely deathly ill from meat because of how terrible my immune system was due to the celiac disease. Would I have gotten that sick if I didn't have celiac disease? I don't know. My mother also said that I was always pretty averse to meat. She's like, I started having problems getting you to eat meat when you were like 4. So I never really cared for it. And I also like, I always knew where it came from. I just, I'm a bleeding heart. I'm like, oh my God, it's animals. I can't do it. So like when my parents, the last time I got ill, told me you don't have to eat it anymore, because they were basically forcing me to like eat some form of meat because I needed the protein. And they didn't know better at the time because that's what they were told. You need protein and meat's how you get protein. And there weren't many veggie sources. So I was like, I am done with this forever. And so I had no problem at that age telling people that it was because it made me very sick, but also because I didn't think it was ethical to animals. But then you've got adults and people kind of condescendingly being like, oh, like, what do you know? You're 12. And you've got to defend yourself. And that was before Facebook and like open forums for multiple people to attack you or judge you, either silently or with their posts, or not, and even anonymously. But then when I got to college, then when everyone's 20, everyone's got a blazing opinion about everything. And so I really had to defend myself. And so part of me defending myself was often not being on the defense, but was being on the offense. So I was very much in your face, like, meat's fucking murder, and like, because if I was beating them to that, they were more likely to leave me alone and not be so like, well, you're a fucking idiot. Like, you think you're not, what, there's a food chain, we're on top of it, and God made animals to eat, and you're going to be sickly, and do you get enough protein? And like, these were the things I'd hear all the time where I'd be like, oh my God, shut up. So if I was on the offense and I was constantly throwing my opinion out there and puffing up, like, then people left me alone about it. And I did feel that strongly, but like, when you're in your 20s, like, everyone's pushing their opinion on everybody. So as I've gotten older, I was like, oh, I didn't have to do that. And it's kind of the same thing, like, to each your own. Like, if you want to eat it, great. If you don't, awesome. Like, it works for me. Me not eating meat doesn't affect you. But it's so interesting because like, so now I'm like so confident and like, it doesn't bother me. Like, people's opinions on it don't bother me. Their judgments on it don't bother me. Like, nothing about it really bothers me. It's not going to make me like self-conscious if I order a salad at work or, in the cafeteria or whatever, or at dinner. But it took a lot of time and a lot of punishment from others to get to that place, which is so interesting.
Yeah, I love your example, because what you're actually sharing is the progression of stepping into confidence
Right.
in your own self versus otherness and
Yeah.
or society, right? And society, it's like whatever we think they think, and or like you're giving tangible examples of what people have actually said, so you have reference
Right.
points of what others think. Or I don't know, sometimes there's just like these societal agreements, that
Yeah.
are in tandem and or communal or familial, right? Like,
Mm-hmm.
and so it's understanding that there's a lot going on out here.
Yeah.
And when you're not confident with what's going on in here, you will puff up or defend or, versus the minute that you are in here sure. And a piece of this comes with constantly going internal. What do I want? What do I believe? What do I think? We were never taught to ask ourselves those questions.
Totally not.
In fact, usually our parents, God bless them, they, think about it like this. I remember being a child, and I'm an intuitive. So, I get visions and messages, and I hear things and I feel things and I see things. Okay. So imagine as a child, you think everyone's like that. And you have a parent who, when you're like, Mommy, why are you sad? She's like, I'm not sad. And you're like, no, but right. And then there's not a congruence. And so what happens is you stop believing your internal self.
Uh-huh.
And you start believing the external.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
It's
we
also
totally teach people to not listen to their own selves, listen to everybody else.
Yeah, it's dangerous. And so it's not.
Listen to your parents, listen to your teachers, listen to your grandparents, listen to all the adults, which I get it. Like at being a parent, like, and kids are little and small and they don't have the ability, like, to maybe recognize like the full danger or safety of a situation. But it's like, there was no recognition in like when to let go and be like, oh, and okay, they can figure it out here or there. Like even in the toddler. So it's interesting to see it as a parent, because I can see how it happens, but it's like it's like they don't back off to be like, okay, now you got to figure it out on your own and listen to your voice. It's like you spend 18 years being like, listen, my way or the highway, my way or the highway. And then you're like, go to college and be free and make all of these hard decisions and figure your life out. Oh, why are you not an emotional adult? Oh, all of these kids these days, they're so entitled and terrible and don't know how to deal with anything. And it's like, you gotta make them that way.
Yeah. So that's the thing too, right? Is knowing, and a lot of people when when they're in the infancy of their confidence, of their desire space and or their dreams, which is everyone when you awaken to asking yourself, what do I want? It's so important to surround yourself with yes and people instead of yeah but people.
Oh yeah.
Right. Yeah. And sometimes when I'm in the infancy of a creation, I don't share it with anyone. Because sometimes I'll share something and they're like, and then like my whole, it could be they're in a bad mood and they're not even fucking listening to me. But I create story and meaning all of a sudden, like, oh, is that not, it's like I call it the ninja mind. It's like the ninja mind comes in as like comfort zone. Let's keep you in it, Yeah. Okay. Cool. Let's make up all these meanings that are, and like your ninja mind starts doing all these.
Oh yeah.
Even though I have spent years and years and years taming my mind to serve my desires. So this doesn't happen overnight, right? And
no.
Still get tricked by my ninja mind that, so I have learned.
Oh yeah.
And like, so I love the progression you shared, because there's this infancy of creation, of dream, of ideas, of visions. And typically in the infancy, you're not even 1,000,000% certain. Well, you can feel it and you know it, but then it's just like, it's like your mind hasn't really integrated it yet. So fire always comes from like soul self and from the body, and you can feel it and you know it, and you're being guided to it. But the brain needs to be on board in order not to do that ninja mind bullshit to you.
Dude, it's the worst. It just happened to me 2 weeks ago, and I was like, what's going on? You know, and like I couldn't figure it out, and then I did figure it out, and I was like, what the fuck? Totally. And that's so funny, because what's hilarious about that, and it especially tying into fitness, is like doing like the Beachbody coaching thing, right? Like you get into it and you're excited, and I was like, yeah, I'm gonna fucking help all these people, and like I feel great and I look awesome, and I'm just like so feeling good. And I know my husband's over here, so he'll probably roll his eyes a little bit, but like we've talked about this. Like here's a perfect example of, you're talking about like, this guy loves me 110%. You know, I know that, like, he just made me gluten-free cookies from scratch the other day. Like he's awesome. I am feeling like super pumped and comfortable in my skin and happy in my body, you know, and I'm just like, I've had a baby, and like, you know, again, society tells you about this thing, like your body's never going to be the same and blah, blah, blah. So I'm just feeling good. I think I was walking around in a bathing suit, and I kind of like probably had a little strut to me, you know, whatever like that. And he's made some sort of comment on the sense, because I was like, hey, I look pretty good in this bathing suit, huh? And he made some sort of comment to the effect of like, well, aren't you, God, what did he say? He was like, well, aren't you conceited? And I was like, it's funny because with him, when he said that, and this someone's very close to me, I didn't shrink down, you know, where like a lot of people maybe in that situation could, especially when you have your spouse telling you that. Like I didn't shrink down. Instead, I kind of like stood my ground. I was just like, hey man, don't confuse my body confidence with being conceited. Like being conceited or arrogant or whatever you want to call that, like that's still rooted in shame. That's rooted in some sort of comparison. Like this was me outside of anyone else, how anyone else looks like, not judging anyone else's appearance or where they're at physically or whatever, or their body shape, like just loving where I'm at and who and where I am. So, and then to speak to the other side of that, so like with him, I didn't shrink down, but then like was doing the coaching and everything like that. You know, you're posting things and you're trying to motivate people, and, you know, you want to get people pumped and excited, and you're inviting them to join you with it. And you're making a lot of what you're doing pretty public. And then over time, it wasn't a very long time, but like I started to really feel the weight of other people's judgments. And they didn't necessarily weren't verbal judgments. But like you could just tell. And like there were some people who said some snarky things to me, and that goes back to like you when you stop drinking. It's like in some way it's like they feel triggered and like I'm judging them. And so what's interesting about that is that like I couldn't like pinpoint that. I just knew something was wrong because Comfy Slob came out. Like I went to work in my glasses one day and I was like, something's wrong. And it was like the ninja mind took over. And somehow, like I figured out when I really thought about it, I read this post and it was so powerful by Melissa Hartwig. And she's got this post and she's talked about it before, and it's called The Lesson of the Lamp. And it was talking where she basically says what someone's opinion of a lamp, she gives it like as an example, what someone's opinion of a lamp says very little about the lamp itself, but it says a very lot about that person who's giving the opinion. And it doesn't actually necessarily mean it's good or bad. It just means like, you know, if they're like, hey, I don't like that lamp, like maybe they don't like soft white light and they prefer LED light. Maybe they don't like that color and they prefer brass lamps. Maybe that's not a shade they like. It doesn't mean there's something actually wrong with the lamp. It's just not their preference. She then wrote another post, which hit me like a ton of bricks. And I was like, oh my God, which was the other lesson of the lamp, which was basically like, and I think this goes for so many different things. Just as you cannot take people's opinions of whatever you're doing in your life, whatever endeavor, whether it's you're creating something, you're taking control of your health, you're changing jobs, you're starting or deciding not to have a family, or that you don't want to get married. Just as you can't take those people's negative opinions personally, you also really can't take their positive opinions personally, in the sense of like, it's the same thing. Like, because then otherwise you're hanging and you're depending on people's approval still in some way. And that's death by 1,000 paper cuts. Or it's like a weight being put, it's like you're treading water and every, you know, it's a 1 ounce weight on your body every time. And eventually you're just going to drown. You can't carry all that weight.
Yeah, there's something really, really powerful in what you're saying. Again, this goes back to living life out here instead of in here.
Yes. Yeah.
Peace is in here. Happiness is in here. That's basically what the entire Epic Sexy You book is about, is learning how to get in here, like in your body, in your soul, in your intuition, having a relationship with you. And what I love about what you're saying is that, you know, the word approval whore keeps coming up. You know, there are people, and you can feel it. You can feel when someone really, really wants you to like them. And it makes me not want to like them. I don't know. I mean, you know what I mean? Like, the more you want me, the more you really want me to like you, the more I'm like, oh, stop. Like, I can't. That's too much pressure. Like, I'm not, you know, and so it's interesting, like, to make sure for yourself that, I think we've said this on a different episode, or if not, I said it in my online members community, but it's like, you know, I wanted approval from my mother my entire life. And the minute that I stopped giving a fuck about having approval, because I felt I never got it. She started really, you know, championing me. And I was like, you're kidding, right? You know what I mean? Like, I
totally
didn't care anymore, you know? And also what was actually really cool was the minute she kind of backed off on caring if she got my approval, I started engaging with her in a new way. So there's something really beautiful. I also feel like there's what you're saying here that's really powerful is this body shaming that happens on the other side of things that people don't talk about. And again, we use the body as an example, but it's anything, right? So like sobriety, I'm sure people were shaming me for being such a fucking hot mess, but you know, I wasn't conscious enough to even hear them shaming me. So actually, that's not true. When someone would shame me while I was drunk, I would always want to fight. Spicy McChicken.
That's true. Yeah, she was out. Yeah. She would have been friends with Angry Vegetarian in college.
Exactly. Yeah, we were
making meat murals. Yeah, fuck all you guys.
Exactly. So there's another side of shame, which is the who do you think you are piece. So like one's I'm not enough, and the other one's who do you think you are.
Yes. And so I think I experienced, or like we're experiencing a lot of the like who do you think you are, with the like elevating yourself to the next level.
Yeah. So just know that as you create the body you love, the life you love, the dream, you know, you're going to bump into the other side of shame that we don't usually talk about, or society doesn't usually prepare you for.
Right.
Which is who do you think you are? And so as an example, I posted a picture inviting people to come, you know, do one of my workout challenges with me. And for me, it's like, I have this wildly successful business, right? And I do the fitness stuff as a hobby for myself because I like sharing journeys. Like doing shit by myself is not fun. Well, that's not true. I love being by myself, but like the fitness journey, I need the accountability. So I post this thing and I'm like, you know, putting up my guns and I've got my 6-pack of abs. And a gentleman who I've only met once, it was at an event, and so I don't even know this person very well. He writes on there that I like a woman with curves. And I could actually feel, so there's a different, I could feel that he was trying to knock at me a little bit because I'm at the point in my life where I'm very lean and, you know, got some, you know, especially that picture, there was like, it was lean and
yeah, you looked great.
And so I liked his comment because I'm not, to your point of the evolution of,
yeah,
know, I'm in this space right now where I don't really care what anyone says about me. Right. Now, it doesn't mean that I don't experience moments or days or whatever, but like, I'm not going to hand my power away. I realize that I have the power to decide how I respond. So for me, I liked his comment. And then he put a comment. It was like he was irritated that I was liking his comment. I grew up with my brother is like the best button pusher in the entire face of the planet. Lovely. So I'm like a professional. You know, I'm like, not
nothing pisses a button pusher off more than not giving them a reaction.
And I don't think this gentleman was a button pusher, but I definitely think in that moment he was trying to. So I don't think that was his. I obviously.
Yeah, he was trying to poke a fire.
I triggered him in some way by doing that. And then so he wrote on there, like, he's like, I want women who are curvy to know that it's okay to be curvy and that there are men out there that love you that way. And I'm like, I actually liked that comment too. So I didn't, because the thing is I agree with that.
Right.
Like, that's the thing is like, I agree. Love yourself exactly as you are. However, why do I not get to love me how I am?
Right.
Right. Yeah. And so that's the thing is like, I champion everyone on whatever the hell they want to do in their dreams. Sometimes people tell me some of their dreams and I'm like, okay, nowhere on my radar. Not my jam.
Right.
But I will help you figure out how to get there because that's your jam. It's your, you know what I mean? And that's the thing that I feel like in terms of when we look at society, otherness, what have you, it's so important for us. Again, I'm going to keep saying it like a broken record because that's how we learn is repetition, is you have to start with pulling yourself out of that rat race of energy, whether it's family, friends, coworkers, society, the industry you're in, etc. It's like,
when you got,
all these boxes, pull yourself out, give yourself some breathing space and ask, what do I want?
And I think that one of the most important things you can do with that too is you have to start, and it takes a lot of practice, getting good at figuring out when you're out there. Because I think that can happen very sneakily. It's very sneaky and all of a sudden you don't realize it. And like, so, you know, and then being like, oh, okay, pull it back in. But like, that takes practice because like you might be very much like I'm saying like with like the vegetarianism, like that's an arena for me where it's like, so for me to make any dietary changes, I've already dealt with everybody's opinion on being a vegetarian. So when I went gluten-free, although people were like, oh, well, that's for a health reason, so it's okay. Well, I cut out dairy, and whether it was for a health reason or like I just didn't want to eat dairy anymore, it like who cares? But you know, if everyone's got an opinion on it, but like that already prepared me for the arena of dietary changes and on all the opinions and all of the word vomits that come with it. So then I think sometimes you can, if you've got confidence in one arena, think that you're like, I got this in all the rest of them. And you think that you're in here and you're not operating from that other space. And then all of a sudden you're like, oh yeah, no, I'm not, you know? So I think that's it. You have to like practice that though. Cause even like I'm talking about when I got to this space, it was like the last few days, my mind has been like, I'm like, oh, like, you know, usually when I'm having a mind melt, I text you and I'm like, my mind is melting. But it was, I saw something on one of the people I follow on Instagram, Dr. Henry Cloud, he's doing series on boundaries. And one of the statements he put up about boundaries, and this is the other thing, because society will do a whole hell of a lot to barrel through your boundaries or make you feel selfish for having boundaries or a bad person. But he made a statement and it was like boundary myths. And it was, I am responsible for others. And I was like, and it was right after I had read the whole, like the lesson of the lamp and all that. And it was like, my mind was like, like it was like scrambling. Like I was like, oh my God, like I am in this journey. Like I realized where I went wrong. It was like, okay, so basically, and I've done this in other areas of my life, but it was like, basically I figured out I had been making myself responsible without knowing it for everyone else's opinion of me in this journey. And therefore, by me making myself responsible for it, then I felt the load of all of it. And then making myself responsible potentially for my challengers and how they're performing. And like, I could start going through things and seeing them when I thought back on it and being like, fuck, you know, I saw the error of my ways, but which was great because then it's like, okay, moving forward, I can be so much more aware of that, even though my brain is scrambling currently. And that's going to help me, but then I can pinpoint in other arenas in my life, whether it's fitness or, you know, beauty or parenting, where I am making myself unnecessarily responsible for someone else's shit.
Yeah, I love that you bring boundaries up. Because it's something I've been practicing boundaries. Well, first of all, when I heard, I shit you not, so like maybe 6 years ago when I was sitting in one of like my first therapy sessions ever, and I was sitting with her and she was like, you know, it sounds like you could use, you know, some boundaries. And I was like, I know what that means, but could you explain to me what that means? You know, just so we're on the same page, AKA I have no idea what the hell that word means, you know? And so what's really beautiful is, I completely agree with you, is a piece of this is knowing, and I'm actually, it's funny you bring that up because for this upcoming year, I'm building out a program that's all about boundaries because and also been doing a lot of downloading and writing about it. Every time I see boundaries out there, I see the rigidity in it too. So I have never seen anything that's been created where it's like, sure, that's a version. And there's also this like magic sparkle version of boundaries that you get to say, what do I want? If you notice, my pattern's always, what do I want? It always goes back to what's your intention? What do you want? So a lot of times this way of boundaries is, what do I not want? Right? I don't want to feel this way. I don't want this. And then this other way of boundaries is like, well, what do you want? And how could you create these like magic sparkle bubble boundaries to allow people in? Anyways, that's a side note. So that's coming. The thing is that, yes, we are not responsible for what someone else does or doesn't feel about us. And that's something I learned, really hard lesson in my last relationship. Yeah. Right? Like, loved and adored this person. One of my favorite souls of all time. I know he loved me as much as he was capable of loving, right? But I could also feel he was really when we started dating, we were in some, like, I was leaving the corporate world. I was starting this thing. I didn't have a name for it. I didn't know what hell it was, but I could feel, and then I just went, and as I did that, the higher I got, and he was growing, but it's like, I just skyrocketed. I could feel it triggering him. I started to feel responsible for that. So so I went, no, okay. No. Yes. I'll come back down to you. Yeah. And I remember having dinner with you and saying to you, and it was something I really did not want to admit out loud to anyone, but I knew that, in fact, I ask clients this a lot, so I'm going to ask everyone who's listening this question, because I ask myself this a lot. I always say, what is it that I really don't want to say out loud? Because when we say that thing, the thing that we really don't want to say out loud, we can't put it back in our mouth, and that's where change happens. So so I remember saying to you, like, oh man, I feel like I have to shrink myself a little bit. Oh yeah, I can remember exactly what you did. When you went like this. Yeah, like I did, and I'm like this expansive, and so also a piece of that. So society, and that goes back into the whole, like, who do you think you are thing. Yeah. Oh yeah. That whole
Like in a relationship, it's not even just like, oh, on Facebook, like other moms or other whoever, or friends or coworkers being like, who does she think she is? You could feel that way in your own relationship. Again,
yeah.
my husband, I love him. I mean, I know he enjoys me in a bathing suit, but you're a little arrogant. You're a little conceited over there, aren't you? And that was, who do you think you are?
Yeah.
And if you are responsible for it, yeah, it'll just weigh you down. And it was, like you said, you were like, oh, okay. And I mean, I've been doing that in so many areas of my life. So when I downloaded that, I was like, oh, but I get how I got there. But yeah, it was just interesting to be like, oh shit, okay, fuck. All right, where do I go from here?
Well, and that's the thing is we really have to define for ourselves and like consciously define for ourselves what we want to experience in every area, whether it's our body, a relationship, etc. So like
yeah.
by others' definitions, looking at the relationship, that was a relationship I could have spent the rest of my life in, and I would have been happy-ish.
Right.
Been good. You know what I mean?
There would have been some good days.
Yeah. And so it's like, well, hold on a second. What is my definition of living? That's like,
right.
I'm on a mission to redefine for people, to help people redefine what it means to live. And you don't have to take on my definition. But
well, I think that's perfect too, is what you're saying, like your own definition. And that goes back to what you're saying about like success. Like it's your definition of it. So like your definition of success right now, you love living in Miami and you've got your business and you're doing your retreats down there. And, for you at the current time, like kids aren't on your radar and like you're traveling the world and you're doing all these things. And that's amazing. Some people will get triggered by that and they're like, oh, well, she doesn't want to have a family. And like, oh, like my life isn't good enough, so it's so funny because I could be sitting here doing that, right? Like, oh, you don't like the winter, huh? You left us, Oh, you're too cool to have kids. You got to go blazing around in your bikini, traipsing around the world. But like my measure of success and your measure of success at us being 35 are just different.
yes.
And that's cool. Like there's no judgment there, but people, if it's something different, immediately go into like, they've got to have an opinion on it. It's got to be good or bad.
Yeah. And that goes
They've
back
got to immediately judge it.
Yeah, and that goes back to I don't feel like if your definition of success is different than mine, I don't actually feel any sort of way about it. I'm like, awesome. Because I don't feel responsible for you or your feelings or your definitions. I don't feel like you're responsible for me or my feelings, or like that's the beautiful thing about Magic Sparkle Boundaries, is you realize like you get to be you and I get to be me. And actually in a very humbling way, it was a piece of why I was able to leave the relationship and do it in a way that was a more beautiful experience than anything I had departed from in the past. Because I was able to say like, you not being in a space and place in your life where you want to create an epic adventure life partner like I want to, that has nothing to do with me.
Right.
That's just
Which then is awesome because you don't actually leave a relationship like a lot of people do, like being super salty and like scornful about it. Like they want that person to burn in hell. You're just like, hey dude, it like didn't work out.
Okay. I will admit that my victima wanted him to be miserable without me.
Yes. Victima does, right.
But it's so funny because he's actually really thriving, as my soul self knew that he would, because he needed to not feel selfish for focusing on himself.
Yeah. So there he was making himself responsible for something as well.
Yeah.
Which doesn't shock me that he had that ingrained in him to feel responsible for someone else.
Yes. So the other thing too is I want to just kind of play a little bit here and then we'll wrap up around beauty and the definition of beauty and sexy and the definition of sexy and so as an example, and I'll give two examples. One is, when we look at beauty, we look at things from the perspective, like as an example, that gentleman, his definition of beauty was a woman with curves. Well, I had curves once upon a time, and I'm in just a different space and place in my life. To me, how I would define beauty is funny because it's not even necessarily an external thing. To me, beauty or sexy or, these pieces are all about being in a space and place to, like, it's absolutely 1,000,000% about how you feel inside and what radiates outside of you. So we get to define what beauty means. The other thing, and I'll play this in a second. The other thing is sexy. So when I first created the brand created itself when it was soul downloaded. Epic Sexy You, that word triggers the shit out of a lot of people. And when I Googled sexy, because I was like doing, it's like all this pornography comes up, right? And
Yeah.
Or there was a client that I worked with at the time when I was in the corporate world. And when I started sharing my brand, with people and they wanted to see the website, he went to the website and said, well, that was a lot more clothes than I expected to see. And right, not inappropriate as fuck, but and so what ended up happening is I actually, some people maybe in that situation may have changed the name. I embraced it even more because I was like, this world needs to realize that no one owns words.
Right.
We, like, the society doesn't own words. Merriam-Webster dictionary doesn't own words. Like that, talk about society. Couldn't be more great. We have this book and all of the words and definitions are going to be in this book and we all agree on it. And it's like, no, something can only exist if you agree, if you actively participate in it. Mm-hmm. And what's really cool is, I feel like it's an opportunity as a society for us to take back what beauty means, for us to take back what sexy means. And when I say take back, I mean, it's an individual thing.
Right.
Like, you don't get to tell me that I'm not beautiful because of how I look.
Because you're not curvy.
Right. And also, like, I'm not going to tell someone else that looks different than me and or someone who, it's like, you get to decide what beauty means to you. Are you looking up beauty? Is that what you're doing?
Oh, yeah.
Of course you are.
No, I looked up, because we talked about this before, so I'm like,
I know.
Yes.
I just was like, she's not texting because that would be,
No.
I know. So I'm like, what the hell is she doing? And so you're, okay, yeah, go ahead.
Because I have a Merriam-Webster app on my phone.
Because also, let me get everyone who's watching, Erin didn't give us in the intro this time, but super, super, super smart. Like, unlike the Asperger's, however you say it, spectrum, where if her mind goes somewhere, that's why I was like, okay, where's her mind right now? She's not present. Yes. So you got to basically see what, it's also why Erin can go somewhere one time, literally, and 10 years later, be in the same place, having only ever been there once and knowing how to get back there. So, but that was funny. I just basically watched you like zone. She leaves wherever she is, goes into operation, whatever. Okay. So beauty. Yes, please go ahead.
So I looked up the definition of sexy because we talked about this and I think it was off air before, but it was like the whole, like you were saying, like as the brand started to develop and evolve, what sexy was at one point, you're like, it's different than when it first started. And so now I think we were talking about the society thing, and the whole thing is like, so sexy, especially that word. And I think that's why we're trying to propel this revolution about it, is the fact that, sexy is another one of those words and things that's controlled by society, in the sense of like the actual definition is sexually suggestive or stimulating, generally attractive or interesting. To me, those definitions, especially the generally attractive or interesting, says to me that in order to be sexy, I must gain someone else's approval of what they think sexy is, not what I think it is. And it's like, hey, if it's not your bag, it's not your bag. That's cool. But it's, the definition itself sets you up to make yourself responsible for someone else's opinion of sexy and if they find you sexy and all of that. So it's like bollocks, man.
Well, it's so interesting, like the juxtaposition. I feel like those two
I gotta look
things
up
are
beauty.
in quite juxtaposition. It's like one's like sexual and the other one's aesthetic.
Right.
So it's interesting to me. And that's another thing too, is there, again, there's multiple meanings in the Merriam-Webster app.
Right.
You get to make up whatever you want it to be. And the thing is that you get to decide for yourself what it is. Okay, what else did you find?
So beauty.
Going down rabbit holes.
Beauty. The definition of beauty in the Merriam-Webster dictionary is the quality or aggregate of qualities in a person or thing that gives pleasure to the senses or pleasurably exalts the mind or spirit. A particularly graceful, ornamental, or excellent quality. Brilliant, extreme, or egregious example or instance. So, but that first one where it's talking about qualities in a person or thing that gives pleasure to the senses or pleasurably exalts the mind or spirits. It's like, I feel like society makes you feel like your beauty is a responsibility to how others are perceiving you.
Well, it goes back to your lamp example, right?
Yes.
Beauty is in the eye of the beholder. And what, to me, what that means is that I get to decide for myself. Like there could be a negative connotation to that. There could also be a positive connotation to it. The negative connotation is like, someone else gets to decide what's beautiful. Sure.
Right.
The thing is though, is that like, I'm not responsible for that.
Right.
I get to decide what I find is beautiful. And it is my responsibility then to own that for myself, which means I get to decide what's beautiful for myself. And it also means, when it like sexy, well, I actually think sexy is a feeling.
Yes, it's definitely a feeling state.
Yeah. And so that's interesting. It's like, we don't always have language for feeling. It's a feeling, which is why, I mean, it's just, you just, that's why epic sexy you. It's like, who doesn't want to feel sexy and live an epic life, like an epic and legendary life where they're just like sliding into the grave, exhilarated and lit up and being unapologetically you. And so a piece of this is just giving yourself permission, and we're just using these examples because these are tangible, but giving yourself permission to define it however serves you. And that's the thing that I notice. It's like when you're really stuck in something, to your point, you may not always realize it. Well, just know that anytime you're trying anything new, you are at risk for your ninja mind to come in and try to keep you in your comfort zone. And it's sneaky. Along with all the other avatars that we talked about in prior episodes. So go back and watch those as well if you haven't seen those. And so a piece of this is just being really conscious to say, okay, what's going on here that I'm buying into that's not serving me?
Right.
Is it someone else's opinion? Is it some box that society created? Is it a definition that I'm using that's a definition that's came from someone else's determination of what this word means, or what this thing means, or what I'm supposed to do, or what I should do, or and. I don't know why, but I'm hearing to share this as well. Something I noticed with a lot of clients that I have who, two things. One is clients that I have who don't actually want children. And I'm at that point in my life. It's like maybe 40, maybe 45. Maybe I want them. Maybe I adopt. Maybe I don't. I don't know. But I'm not feeling pulled to it now. That's me, right? And then I have clients too where it's like they feel they feel bad that they actually don't want children.
I know.
It's fighting against that because it's supposed to be the norm. And also women who maybe don't want to get married, or, also, and, just there's like a whole piece that we could play with in this other part. But There are a lot of women I work with who are from cultures where there's a shit ton of rules and definitions of what you should do and who you should date and who you shouldn't
what
date.
a woman is, right? Yeah.
Yeah. So, you know, and also like then there's definitions of what a man is, you know, so it's
Yeah.
watching too, right?
Yeah.
That's not, it's just like you get to decide for yourself. And I feel like we are an army of light workers and pathfinders, trailblazers, move makers that are really coming in and saying, no, that doesn't serve me. I'm going to do this other thing.
Yeah.
You know, and giving yourself permission to live your life according to your own terms.
That is awesome. And also I think it's important to add, like when we're talking about like not caring what people think, but not making yourself responsible for what people's other opinions are, and like not carrying the responsibility for that and like whatever you're doing in your life. And I think it's important. And that was a big thing for me. It's like, okay, for anybody, like whatever your decisions are, as long as you are operating in like, this is the way I put it, I guess, to myself through my own filters, right? If I'm putting posts or I'm putting whatever, you know, fitness related or anything, as long as I am operating within my full integrity, and authenticity, where like I am aligned with my values and morals, then I am not responsible for other people's opinions. I guess I don't mean it as like you can have whatever opinion, like as long as you're not, I guess, hurting other people. You know, like I'm not going to put a post up or I'm not going to say something where I'm blasting and insulting other people and like bashing something or shaming something and then being like, I'm not responsible for how you feel about it, which in a way I'm not, but at the same time, like for me, like one of my rules in that is like, as long as I'm operating in my integrity and authenticity, then I'm not responsible for that. So I don't think it's a free for all to just be like, I'm going to be a dick and then not, you know, responsible for how people feel about me being a shithead to them.
Right. Like the example is like, if you're in a relationship and, you know, you cheat on someone and you hurt their feelings, you're like, I'm not responsible for that. It's like, well, hold on a second. Like you did hurt, you know what I mean? Like,
yeah, exactly.
You contributed to this person's feelings being hurt.
Yeah.
You know, so, but I do understand what you're saying, right? There's a difference between us contributing to a shit storm and not owning the responsibility of this is where boundaries come in, is that a part of that is knowing what is yours and what is mine. So I have an old avatar. Well, she's still there. I have an avatar, the do-it-all girl, but I'm getting a lot better. Even so much as I am hiring people to do the stuff for me in Chicago so I don't have to go back to Chicago during, you know what I mean? So it's just like, I know. Well, but then I can come back and actually enjoy versus come back.
No, totally. And be like, I can't hang out because I got shit to do.
Exactly. Yeah. So I'm exchanging money for more hours of my life so that I can live life. So I'm excited. Okay. So
that's another great example too, using like paying for services, and people are very triggered. They're like, if you're going to get a cleaning lady to make your life more efficient or some way to make your life better, and people are like, oh, look at you with your cleaning lady or whatever. It's like, oh, you're too good to do it yourself. Yeah.
Yeah. So just paying attention to that. So, shoot, I don't know where I was going with that.
I'm sorry.
Girlfriend. You just get so excited and you just jump on in there.
I do. Sorry. You were talking about boundaries, owning what's mine, owning what's yours, and your do-it-all girl. You're getting better.
So my do-it-all girl, she has a pattern of taking the responsibility for all of it. So some people take responsibility for none of it. Mm-hmm. My do-it-all girl tends to be like, oh, you know, and like this whole story on and on about how I am the one that should take the entire pie of responsibility. Right. And so it's just knowing, just paying attention to, you know, are you someone who typically blames, or are you someone who typically takes all of it? And again, it just paying attention to that. I don't even know how that ties in, but I'm sure it does somehow because it's all coming through.
No, because we've been talking, about that the whole time is basically, I feel like that's the theme, is like paying attention and being aware of where are you out here
Oh, responsible.
Absorbing everything else, or are you in here and you're being like, okay, like, so no, I totally get what you're saying and how that ties in.
Well now, okay, so I remember that. So it's also, it's like, it's knowing a piece of boundary is understanding how to not take responsibility for others and how to take responsibility for yourself. So what you're saying is, yes, don't take responsibility for others, and also, yes, take responsibility for yourself. Yes. So it's knowing both sides of that. So the net out, as we conclude here, really is always make sure that you're checking in with you. There's a game in the book that I share with people, right, where it's like, all day, every day, what do I want? What do I want? What do I want? What do I want? The Epic Sex You is littered with examples. So if you don't already have the book, I would get it, of just like things that you can play with to connect more into you. And as you do that, all this stuff will just be added bonuses in your life, and or things that at one point maybe were painful that aren't actually painful anymore, that you're just like, oh, because a piece of society not being a disruptor to you is by you being really anchored and rooted in yourself. So what do I want? What do I want? What do I want? Anything else that you could think of?
No, I just was going to say, like, even with you saying that, it's just like, am I perfect in where I am and being rooted and like anchored in me? No, of course not. Cause we just talked about that, right? It's always a work in progress, but it's like, it is so much more of a peaceful place to be when you start being able to recognize what is yours and what is everyone else's shit, and filtering all of that out. Like, it's so much more peaceful, and you can just go so much. Yeah, it's amazing.
Completely, right? It's like, okay, I own my, I'll leave you guys with this profound, and you should always know when I say this, it's followed by something really sarcastic, but very profound. So when I was in therapy at the very beginning, I still do therapy, but because I think it's amazing. So therapy helps you heal the past, and coaching takes you from like killing it to just slaying it even more, right? So coaching is all about moving forward. Therapy is all about healing in the past. So, and I think it's like this really beautiful dance. And so when I remember when I was playing with what's mine and what's others is this concept of bag of shit, right? And so I basically now vision when someone else is trying to hand me, which happens all the time. I'm a coach, so let me tell you. What happens is that as I am coaching people out of their blocks, what do you think I'm doing? I'm banging right into a block. And part of my soul signature is I'm really radically honest with people. And it's absolutely a blessing to people who are courageous enough to sit with me in it. And it's absolutely triggering as shit if you're not. Well, it's triggering either way, right?
Yeah.
But I'm going to, and like when you push back on me, no, I'm not going to change what I said. I'm not going to be like, oh, never mind. You know what? No, totally fine. Yeah, no, keep on. No, I'm going to be like, no, hold on a second. You told me you wanted this and you're not doing this and it's not aligned. And so so I've had scenarios before for sure where people basically take their bag of poop, their bag of shit, and they put it, so I always imagine like a little doggy bag, and they put it on my plate. People want to blame me for things, or like when someone anxiety bombs me and I'm like, whoa, why'd you do that? And then they're upset that I didn't let them anxiety bomb me, or that you know? And so, and then all of a sudden I'm the asshole. And so the thing is that I can't be the asshole unless I agree to be the asshole. Right? So if I'm like, nah, I'm not, you know, like that guy who wanted me to be an asshole, but he obviously doesn't know me well enough. That guy who is shaming me, he doesn't know me well enough because my whole entire brand is built on loving you, and we're all different. And it's, I of course, if you're curvy and like, I want you to love your curves. If you're skinny,
he was like, wait, let me give her another opportunity to accept being the asshole. And you were like,
oh my God, in traffic. I laugh at people, and I think I might be murdered. That might be how I go out. It's either going to be skydiving when I'm 103, or I'm going to be smiling and laughing at someone who's giving me the finger and they're going to shoot me. Either way, right? Like, I can only be the asshole if I agree to be the asshole. And so that's the other thing, is just remembering, like, when someone hands you their bag of shit, you have a choice in the matter. Mm-hmm. One is, I always go, is anything in here mine? Oh, I'll take this. This is totally mine. And I own it. I'm humble. I'm sorry. Please forgive me. Legit, my bad. I did, and then I'll be like, okay, cool. And then I hand it back. Cause they're
like, what? No, the rest of this is yours. And you're like, no.
Yeah.
And I checked.
And I genuinely know that it's a gift to hand someone their bag of shit back.
Yeah.
Because your bag of shit is your soul growth. Mm-hmm. So I actually had a girlfriend the other day say to me, when she learned the power of darkness, she would be like, where's more darkness? Where's more? Like, she was on a hunt for it, because she realized that every time that you bump into darkness, you get soul growth. And so the bag of shit is someone's soul growth. So mm-hmm. technically, if you are the person who is doing that do it all girl avatar thing, where you're taking all of the responsibility, you're selfish as fuck. So stop being so selfish, just saying. So, all right, awesome. Well, thank you guys for joining us. We will, we'll have to go back to the list and see what some of our other things are.
Yeah, what's next?
Yeah, wait, well, I don't know. So stay tuned. We will let you know. Make sure, oh yes, go ahead.
Leave comments, or people leave comments on what you want us to discuss. Maybe you guys have got some issue or some things that you'd like us to talk about or touch on. So put them in the comments, or private message Morgan or myself.
I love that. Ask questions. Yes. Also, there's on the Epic Sexy You YouTube channel, the episodes will be posted. So if you're watching this somewhere else that I may have put it, but make sure to go to YouTube, and there's some other episodes as well. And then Epic Sexy You on YouTube is all one word. Is how you can find the actual channel itself instead of spacing it in. If you also just type in Epic Sexy You with spaces, you'll find it too, but just giving you an idea. So awesome. We're excited to see you next time, and we'll catch you on the flip side. And I just need